The history of Romeo and Juliet is set in Verona, Italy, where there is an ongoing feud between the Montague and Capulet families. The play is opened with servants from both houses engaged in a street brawl that eventually draws in the family patriarchs and the city officials, including Prince Scalus. The prince ends the conflict by using a decree that prohibits any further fighting and the risks of the great punishment. Romeo was a young man from the Montague house. Laments his unrequited love for a woman named Rosalind, who has vowed remain chaste for the rest of her life. Romeo and his friend Benvolio happen to stumble across a Capulet servant, Peter, while he trying to read a list of invitates to a masked party at the Capulet house that evening. Romeo helps Peter read the list and decides to attempt the party because Rosalind will be there. He plans to wear a mask so that nobody will recognize him as a Montague. Romeo arrives at the Capulet's party in costume. He falls in love with young Juliet Capulet from the moment he sees her. However, Juliet's cousin Tybalt recognizes Romeo and wants to kill him on the spot. Lord Capulet intervenes, insists that Tybalt not disturb the party because it will anger the prince. On the return, Romeo quickly approaches Juliet and confesses his love for her. After an exchange loving word, they kiss. Afterwards, Juliet's nurse tells Romeo that Juliet is a Capulet, which upsets the smitten youngster. Meanwhile, Juliet is similarly disturbed when she finds out that Romeo is a Montague. Later that night, Romeo climbs the garden wall in the Juliet's garden. Juliet emerges on her balcony and speaks her private thoughts out loud. She wishes Romeo could cheat his name and marry her. Upon hearing her confession, Romeo appears and tells Juliet that he loves her. She warns him to be true in his love, and he swears by his own self that will be. Before they part, they agree that Juliet will send her nurse to meet Romeo at 9 o'clock the next day, at which point he will set a place for them to be married. The nurse carries out her duty and tells Juliet to meet Romeo at the chapel where Fair Lawrence lives and works. Juliet meets Romeo there and their affairs marry them in secret. Benvolio and Mercurio are waiting on the street later that day when Tybalt arrives. Tybalt demands to know where Romeo is so that can challenge him to a duel, in order to punish him for sneaking in the party. Mercurio is eloquent back, but Romeo happens to arrive in the middle of the verbal sparring. Tybalt challenges him, but Romeo passively resists fighting, at which point Mercurio jumps and draws his sword on Tybalt. Romeo tries to block the two men, but Tybalt caught Mercurio and runs away, only to return after he hears that Mercurio has died. Angry over his friend's death, Romeo fights with Tybalt and kills him. Then he decides to flee. When Prince Scalus arrives at the murder scene, he banished Romeo from Verona forever. The nurse tells Juliet the sad news about what happened to Tybalt and Romeo. Juliet is heartbroken, but she realizes that Romeo would have been killed if he had not fought Tybalt. She sends her nurse to find Romeo and give him her ring. That night, Romeo sneaks into Juliet's room, and they consummate their marriage. The next morning, he is forced to leave when Juliet's mother arrives. Romeo travels to Mantua, where he waits for someone to send news about Juliet or his banishment. During Romeo and Juliet's only night together, however, Lord Capulet decides that Juliet should marry a young man named Paris, who has been asking for her hand. Lord and Lady Capulet tell Juliet of their plan, but she refuses, infuriating her father when both Lady Capulet and the nurse refuse to insert it for the girl. She insists that they leave her side. Juliet then visits Friar Lawrence, and together they concoct a plan to reunite her with Romeo. The friars give Juliet a potion that will make her seem dead for at least 2 days, during which day Romeo will come to meet her in the Capulet vault. The friar promise to send word of the plan to Romeo. Juliet drinks the first potion that night. The next morning, the day of Juliet and Paris' wedding, her son finds her dead in bed. The whole house decried her suicide, and Friar Lawrence insists to quickly place her into the family vault. Unfortunately, Friar John has been unable to deliver the letter to Romeo, informing him of the plan. So when Romeo's servant Brian his news in Mantua that Juliet has died, Romeo is broken. He hurries back to Verona, but first buys a potion in an apothecary and writes a suicidal note detailing the tragic course of the events. As soon as Friar Lawrence realizes that his letter never made to Romeo's hand, he rushes to the Capulet tomb, hoping to arrive before Romeo does. Romeo arrives to the Capulet vault and finds it guarded by Paris, who is there to mourn the loss of his betrothed. Paris challenges Romeo to duel, and Romeo kills him quickly. Romeo then carries Paris' body into the grave and sets it down. Upon seeing Juliet's dead body lying in the tomb, Romeo drinks the poison, gives her a last kiss, and dies. Friar Lawrence arrives to the ball just as Juliet wakes up. He tries to convince her to flee, but upon seeing Romeo's dead body, she takes her own life as well. The rest of the town start to arrive at the tomb, including Lord Capulet and Lord Montague. Friar Lawrence explains the whole history, and Romeo later confirms it. The two families agreed to settle their feud and form an alliance despite the tragic circumstance. This is the end of the love history marked by hatred and envy between two families that ends in the most tragic way. However, what is the archetype makes both families reconcile and find peace? End.